Oh, hello everybody. Danny back from Deepsouth Homestead. Yeah, I'm in the off-grid cabin today. It has been screaming hot for, oh man, we're at day number 30 something. I looked at my records. It's been 30 something days now. We're over 100 and something degrees. The last week, we've been 109 to 117 heat indexes. And today is no exception. Since they cut all the timber behind us here, the sun is just right on the back of the cabin here. But the cabin is insulated and, you know, it's soundproofed and everything. And there's no air in here of anything like that, but it stays relatively cool in here compared to outside. I mean, the temperature in here is 75 degrees. To me, that's pretty cool. But we've, you know, I don't know how long this is going to last. I know we have a huge high that's moving up from Mexico, moving up in this direction. I did see the extended forecast for a week before I came over here, and it shows all next week we're going to be under heat index advisories. We're under one now. And that's anything over 108 degrees where we live at. Now, you know, heat advisories may be different in different parts of the country, but for us down south here, you know, it has to be over 108 is what the chart that I looked at said before we're classified as being under a heat advisory. Now, to me, that's insane. I mean, just give you a for instance, here 2 days ago, or is it, wait a minute, yeah, no, 4 days ago, I'm sorry. 4 days ago, Wanda and I got up and I looked at the thermometer, it said 66 degrees. I said, what happened? It's 66 degrees. Man, we jumped in the truck and took off over to Pecan Grove. We had to feed animals anyway, but we went over there and we had a lot of work that needed to be done. And it was a joy. Wanda was mowing and I was doing other things around the property. The breeze was blowing. It was really nice. I mean, it felt like fall. But by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was 109 degree heat index. And I told Wanda, I said, just sit and think about that for a minute. That's 66 when we got up. That's 76, 86, 96, you know, 106. That was 43 degrees difference from sunrise to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I looked at our gardens and I said, no wonder the gardens are suffering. Now, the only thing that's not suffering is peas and sweet potatoes and stuff like that. They love that. Okra, it all loves that. But, you know, tomatoes, oh, they're about gone. I mean, it don't matter what you do to them. In that kind of heat, they're just not going to last. Plus, we planted determinants this year. And once determinants make their tomatoes, they die anyway. We didn't plant any indeterminates this year, except for, I have 3 plants. That's we call them mystery tomatoes. They were technically celebrity hybrids that we saved. That I didn't save the seed. That we just threw them in our composting for our worms, and they came up, and I saved the seed. I saved the little plants, planted them in my high tunnel. They lasted all through the freezes of the winter in the high tunnels and did not die. So in the spring, I took suckers off of them and planted them over at Pecan Grove and did the electroculture with them, and they're still Cadillacing. So technically they're probably a celebrity, I would have to say, because they came from a celebrity hybrid, because that was the only thing we planted that year. So, you know, I mean, guys, this weather, and this is not the bad part, it's not over. Summer just started this past week. We're just getting into this, and it's already, I mean, we're in day 30 something for over 100 degree heat index. So we've still got, here in the deep south, we'll go all the way to the end of September in these kind of heat things. So we've still got another, you know, 12 weeks to go, I guess, before we'll start seeing anything cooling off, unless the Lord's just generous to us. Now, there's been a lot of rain around in the area. We have not gotten it. We got a really good rain one day And the next day we got a little bit of a rain, maybe a quarter of an inch, which is nothing for us. And since then, we got sprinkles. You know, it sprinkled for 5 minutes and then the sun come back out, and that'd be it. While everybody around us, I see the red thunderstorms. I mean, we talk about hail and high winds and stuff like that going all around us here. Now, I'm thankful for that. But I'll tell you what, my ponds are almost 4 foot low here at Deepsouth. And at Pecan Grove, they're still full. The pond over there is still full. It was running over the other day, so I mean, it's doing fine. But here at Deepsouth, it's just, it's been dry. It's been bad dry. And I don't know how much longer this is going to go on before we get a change in the weather pattern. See, that's the thing. Now, there's going to be those of you who are watching this who are up in the Ohio River Basin up that way, and, you know, Kentucky, Virginia, around through that area up through there. Y'all are just going to be inundated with bad weather, is what they're saying. And then you're going to have, you know, like Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana and us. We're going to be just inundated with this severe heat. It's just, it's being blocked here. It can't get out of here. Now, I don't know how long it's going to last, I'll be honest with you. But, you know, all of that leads to distress on the food system, especially if you're growing your own food. Now, our gardening, other than the okra, the sweet potatoes, and the corn, is almost over with. I mean, we're not planting anything else, I'll tell you that. Not in this heat. Whatever we have, as it plays out, we just take it up. You know, I mean, our peas are still doing good. Wanda has picked, she's almost tired of picking the pink-eyed purple hull peas. They love the heat. And we have some white okra over at Pecan Grove. It is doing fantastic. I went ahead and pulled up the other okra that was around it, so that now I can save seeds from it, because it is an heirloom that came from a subscriber in Alabama. And we've never grown white okra, so this year we grew it, and we literally love it. It is good. Now here at Deepsouth, right outside the cabin here, I have the Star of David planted here. It's been a bad year for everything here. I mean, the ground, I went out there literally, now you may think this is silly, but I went out there and took my broadfork, because a lot of times, I mean, I don't tell everybody everything I do when I garden, okay? That's just, I just don't tell everything, but I will tell this. I took the broadfork out there, and I do this quite often to my vegetables. And once they get up where I can't use a tractor, I took the broadfork out there, and I went down by the okra about 10 inches from the okra. I was going to stick it in the ground and, you know, just kind of aerate the soil a little bit. I got down about 4 inches. I jumped up and down on that thing. I mean, I went down that whole row. 4 inches deep is all I'm getting in the ground. And guys, I broke that ground this year. And it has turned to concrete. That hardly ever happens. So I moved over to the squash, and the squash is almost that bad. It went down about 8 inches in the squash, and I was able to break it a little bit. So what I did was I turned the water hose on, and I watered the okra really, really heavy, and said I just told myself I'll let it set for a day. But I came back the next day, and this 118, 17 degree heat indexes, I stuck it in the ground. It didn't go no deeper than it went to start with. So I'm having to wet it and wet it and wet it and wet it. I finally have got the broadfork down around 8 inches with the okra, and have been able to break the ground up a little bit. I poured in lots of fish emulsion, the Dr. Earth Bloom and Grow. I poured it all down, the liquid phosphate, and poured all that down in there. And the okra is trying to come out of, you know, being stunted a little bit because of the hard ground, but I'm afraid that it's not going to do it. And guys, this is only the beginning of what we're going to be facing. You know, when there's no moisture in the ground, I mean, when it's gone, it's gone. And we're in sand here, and it's that bad. Now, we don't have any clay here on where I have my gardens at. We just don't have any. It's just now down in the bottom parts of the hollers and the lower part of the land in there, we got clay down there. But up here on these hills, it's just sand and rocks and gravel and stuff like that, and there's no clay. And nothing holds any moisture. When it dries out, it dries out. But usually there's enough rocks in the soil that it holds enough moisture to, keep plants going without any problems. It's great for growing things like peas and okra usually, and sweet potatoes have done fantastic here. Regular Irish potatoes do great here. We've usually not had any problems, squash or anything like that. They do good. Corn has done fantastic. But with the heat anomalies we're having, everything this year seems to be struggling a little bit. And that plays a part on the food system if you're trying to save your own and grow your own food, which I highly encourage anybody to do. But I said all this to say that so many of us have bought into the system. And it wasn't just us, it started with our parents and our grandparents. I'm going to say back in the day, after the Great Depression and the World Wars was over, and the victory gardens kind of played out, and people quit farming as much, and the people started moving off the farms and moving into the cities because there was money to be made. Now, I guess I've never understood that concept. Why you would move from a peaceful farm, even though it's hard labor, but it's rewarding. I mean, you're growing your own food and your own animals. That's what Wanda and I do. I mean, yeah, I could have kept on with my companies, and I could probably be very wealthy today. But I chose not to, because money it's never been that important to me since I've gotten up in age. Now, when I was younger, oh yeah, I climbed the corporate ladder. I mean, I built my companies up, and I didn't care who I stepped on. It was just money, money, money. But there come a day when reality setting in, and I got tired of the system, and I realized this makes a monster out of you, and it was making a monster out of me. I mean, I was very short-tempered with everybody. I would fire you at the drop of a hat, and that's not who I was, but it made me into that. And today, what I've learned in trying to talk to people is people are defending the system. And they don't even realize they're defending the system. Now, I've been self-employed my whole life. I've only worked for a company once or twice, and that was when I was a teenager growing up. I was a body man and a mechanic. I went to college to be a mechanic, and I thought that that's the direction I wanted to go, so I worked for a Chevrolet company. And that's the only few years that I ever worked for anybody else. I've always been self-employed. I realized then I was going to go nowhere in life if I worked for other people. And I was going to be tied to the system. And that's something, as a young man, I realized right quickly, I did not want to be tied to a system. But today, when I talk to people, and I try to reason with people, everybody I talk to, no, not everybody, but a lot of the people I talk to, all they want to do is defend the system. And really, like I said, it's not our fault. Our parents were the first ones, and our grandparents were the first one who quit raising their own food, depending on God to provide for them, and started going to grocery stores and shopping, and quit growing gardens because they said, oh, it's in a grocery store. We can just get it at the grocery store. And granted, the first grocery stores raised good food because farmers were bringing good food into the grocery stores. I rebuilt grocery stores for men who would allow little small farmers come in and bring their produce in out of their little gardens and stuff like this. Or in the fall, they'd bring their turnip greens and their collards and stuff like that in, cabbages and stuff, and they'd let them sell them through the grocery store there. The grocer would buy them from them and then put them up in the store. But then insurances and all that got involved, and all that started kind of fading away, and we all become prey to the system. Well, I watched my mother and father fall prey to the system. Now, my dad owned his own business most of his life, but they made bad financial decisions. And when they got to be up in age, they had gotten themselves so deep in debt with the company that when they sold it, they still owed like $80,000 to get out from under the debt they was in. And they had to open up their own lawn care business in their 60s to be able to pay that off, which they did, and I think it took them 3 years to pay it off because they made really good money, doing lawn care. And then from that point forward, they went over to their Social Security, and that's all they lived on. I literally had to go help them with everything they did. And I said, Dad, what happened? Well, I don't know. He said, I just never thought this day would come. And I said, Dad, we all know this day's coming. We have to make provisions for the future. And he just kept going on. I said, Dad, quit defending the system. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, you're defending the system. You're saying that if it hadn't been for the system, you wouldn't be able to make it, which is not true. You made bad decisions. And he said, well, I just didn't think I figured I would die before I got to this problem in life. And my dad spent 15 years in a wheelchair because he broke his back. And I told him, I said, Dad, we all know we're going to come to this point in life and we have to make financial decisions for our future. Now, there's nothing wrong with having Social Security because you paid it in. My dad, just like me, most people only pay 7.5% in. I paid the full 15% in, 15.3 I think it was, because I'm self-employed. I didn't have a boss to pay the other half of my Social Security. Neither did my father. My mother never worked up until she was in her 60s, and when she found out she couldn't draw any Social Security because she had never worked, unless my daddy died, she went to work at a service station, working behind a cash register. And because she wanted to be able to draw some Social Security, and she put all that money into Social Security. I said, Mama, what are you doing? Use that money for your own benefit. I said, let them take out some Social Security of it, but don't give it all to them. Well, I want to be able to draw a good check, son. Yeah, I said, Mama, quit defending the system. Social Security, if you go back and look at it, I told my parents, I said, go back and read the beginning of Social Security. It was never meant to be lived on. It was an insurance supplement, is what it was. So that if you fell on hard times, you could use it. I said, but today it's been built up to where it's a system that we live on, and everybody I talk to wants to defend it. Now, is it your money? Yes, it's your money. But if you had taken the same amount of money that you paid into Social Security and you had put it into a HMM, a high money market, or some sort of other CDs or, something else like that, that's what, I invested in things like that, and you would make double or triple the amount of money you had in Social Security, and you would get it all if you wanted it. Now, you might have to pay a small penalty if you took it all out at once, and you would still have to pay taxes on it when you take it out, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like it is, we've paid in, like especially me, I paid into Social Security my whole entire life. And I've paid the full 15%. I'm never going to draw that amount of money out of there. I don't care if I live to be 90 years old. I'm not going to draw it all out because I paid too much. And they're constantly hounding me about drawing it now because I could. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be in the system. I know it's my money. But I've lived this long without it. And I don't want them breathing down my neck. Now, we've talked about this before. I'm not going to defend the system. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I couldn't have done any better. Well, because I did do better. My parents were very poor. And y'all heard me talk about this in the past. When we were children, when I was a child, we didn't have any running water. My dad would bring water home in a garbage can from town when he drove his old pulpwood truck home. We did not have a refrigerator. Our refrigerator was a metal garbage can. Dad would go by the ice house and get a block of dry ice and bring it home, put it in the metal garbage can. Mama would put a towel over it and we'd put our stuff in it. And the old house we lived in was so cold that we had an old refrigerator that they would put the eggs and stuff in the refrigerator to keep them from freezing on the counter in the wintertime. And Daddy would pour antifreeze in the toilet so it wouldn't freeze and bust it. The kitchen was separate from the house. You had to go out a breezeway to get to the kitchen, because if it caught on fire, it was an old wood stove. If it caught on fire, at least it'd burn that and wouldn't burn the house down. I mean, it was just no insulation in the walls, nothing like that. Just an old wood frame farmhouse. They were just very poor. And it just, I remembered all that so well growing up, that when I got to be a young man, I left home. And my father got upset with me. He said, "Run off, son. Go on off to that world out there that you want to be a part of." And I told him, I said, "Dad, I just want to do better. That's all. I just want to do better." And I did. I went and started my own companies. It took a while before I did, but I finally got there. I do remember I did work for one other person I forgot about. I worked for another guy in a sheet metal industry, and I learned a valuable lesson working for him. You know, I mean, and he taught me a lot of stuff. I was there for 2 weeks. That's all I lasted, was 2 weeks. Drove me up the wall. And he looked me square in the eye and he said, "You're the kind of guy who's going to own his own business. I'm just going to tell you now. I can tell by the way you work, your work ethics and everything. You are going to." I'd be there 22 minutes to an hour before everybody else showed up. I'd have the whole shop opened up, and it wasn't even my responsibility to do it. I just did it, you know. But guys, when we sit back and say we have no choices, that's not true. We have an entire lifetime to make choices. Now, is all the choices I've made in life been good? No, I've not made the best decisions my whole life. I've lost everything I've owned twice in my life. 2 times. I've lost everything I owned. So I wasn't immune to it. Nobody is immune to it. But we don't stay there. We get up, we dust our boots off, and we go back to the grindstone and we figure out what we did wrong, and we redo our life and we begin to rebuild it. And we don't depend on the system, and we don't defend the system. Now, I could have went and got food stamps, and I could have went and got this, and I could have went and got that. Well, I guess I could have. I don't know. I tried one time when I got hurt. I had a tree fall on me and I broke my legs, and I tried to go get some food stamps, and they told me, said, "No sir, we can't let you have them, you own too much. Now sell what you have and we'll let you have them." And I'm like, "Oh no, heck no." And I crutched myself out of there, you know, and I said, "No, these people are nuts." And from that point forward, I just never did. I never tried again. And it just made me angry at that point. And I said then, I never want to be a part of this system. It's crooked. It's bad crooked. The government right now is taking our Social Security money and paying the pensions of people in other countries. That's not right. I don't care who you are. That's not right. They borrow from the Social Security system all the time. You know why? Because there's an ample supply of money there. They know that they'll never use it. So they borrow from it, which is wrong. Anybody who's paid into Social Security should have the right to get it if they want it. You shouldn't have to wait till you're 70 years old to draw your full retirement. If you paid it in at 60, what is it you could draw at 63 years old? At 63 years old, you ought to be able to draw the full amount if you want it. But no. They want to hold it back and give you a little bit up front and tell you if you work a few more years, then you can have this amount. Or if you work a few more years, we'll give you a little more. Because we just got ours in, we looked at them, and if I wait till I'm 70, I can draw twice as much as I can draw right now at 60-something. And I looked at Wanda and I started laughing. I said, "It's my money. Why would I want to do this?" I said, "I should be able to draw the full amount right up front if I want it because it's mine. But no, we gave it to them, and now they have the right to say when we get it and how much of it we get. And most people die before they ever draw the full amount that they've paid in. And then guess what? The government don't give it back to the family. No, they find something else to do with it. They darn sure don't give it to nobody else. They use it for their own benefits. So guys, just be careful that you don't defend the system, because it's crooked, it's corrupt, it is as wicked as it gets. Yes, it's yours and my money. Yes, we should be able to get it, but I will promise you this, they're not going to give it to you under your terms. So just like I have a letter from President Bush in my safe that stated, Mr. King, at your age, I would invest my money into mutual funds and other areas rather than depending on Social Security, because by the time you reach the age to draw Social Security, there's a real good probability it may not be there. That was an eye-opener to me when I got that letter. I was like, this is nuts. But I'm seeing now what they're talking about, because they're taking it and dispersing it all over the world. No wonder they're running out. Which technically they're not, but they want everybody to believe that they are. Guys, don't defend the system. Beat the system. Don't defend it, because it's wicked, it's corrupt. And I know the Bible has lots to say about taking care of people, especially the homeless, the orphans, the fatherless, the widows. But you better go back and read those scriptures. Go back and read 1 Timothy, chapter 5. Go back and read 1 Timothy 5. Paul has a lot to say about it. 1 Timothy 5 has a lot to say about it. Proverbs has stuff to say about it. There's a lot to be said about who's to be taken care of and who's not to be taken care of. You know, I mean, I can sit here and tell you everything that it says. But you know what? It'd probably be better if you go read it yourself, because you know what? There's an age limit. Did you know the Bible gives an age limit for who's to be a widow that you're to take care of? Go look at it. 1 Timothy chapter 5. Read down there. It tells you if a woman's under a certain age, don't put her in that number of widows. If she's got family, it's not the church's responsibility to take care of her. It's the family's responsibility. You see, over the years, we've got this whole system out of whack. God laid out the perfect plan in the scriptures for who was to be taken care of and how they're to be taken care of. And if we would follow those rules, not only would the widows, the orphans, and the fatherless be taken care of, but we as a nation would be blessed. But we refuse to do it. We refuse to depend on the system to take care of these people. And then when it don't work out like we want it to, we defend the system. That's where I'm going, guys. God's Word gives us specific instructions on who to take care of and how to take care of them. Go check it out. 1 Timothy, I hope I'm telling y'all right. 1 Timothy chapter 5, best of my memory. My memory used to be pretty much photographic, but now that I'm getting older, it's not as photographic as it used to be. But I think I'm right. Go check it out, and I think you'll find out. You'll find out there's an age limit. Young women should not be put in the number of widows either. They should remarry and have children, it says, and to be caretakers of the home and stuff like this. If not, they become busybodies. And I mean, it goes. I'm not telling you this. This is God's Word. This ain't my word. Go read it. Check it out. And guys, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about on Porch Time today. This system is wicked that we live under. Thank you, guys, from Deepsouth, Homestead.